Sue, hello Marilyn, hello Nikki, Sandra and Linda. Oh, there's lots of you again. That is lovely. So let's have a look to see what I have here. So here is my piece that we did on Tuesday with the shapes applique. We will work with that shortly. And here is, now I've got my lining pieces cut now. Where are we? There we are. So I've got 2 lining pieces, which the size is in the PDF, which is in the files in the group. And there is my second piece, which we need to pop our pocket onto. So I'm going to start straight away so that you can enjoy the evening. And also, if you started and got to a certain stage now, you'll be able to finish it off tomorrow. So let's just go down to the machine and let's pop our pieces here. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to clamp that down with the foot. So in the instructions, I have put that it should be, I think, about 2 inches from the top. You can pop it where you like, but you don't want it to be too far down to the bottom because we are going to have cut out corners to give our base. So if we center the pocket onto our back piece of the bag or front, depending on whichever way you are going to do that, and just make sure it is nice and straight with the top of the bag, which I can see that is. And then what I do, because the way we're going to add this to the back, you can see this part of the tape is, well, it's not a raw edge, but it's the tape, and we don't want that showing as it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little line towards the end there to the corner of that zip tab, and there also, so that I know then with pins to the ready, I am going to pop that under there, and then we are going to flip this upwards. And because I've got those markings, I can then line up the top of the zip with those markings there. And I am going to put a pin or 2 across here just to hold that in place. Okay, don't know if I can get that one in or without pricking my finger, but just make sure. We can see the tabs here have raw edges, but they are going to be hidden. So let's just see. I'm just going to move my needle over so that I can stitch in from the edge. So now I'm going to stitch across here. So let me just pop that. So I'm using the zip coil, which is on the underside, as the guide. Let's have a look. Just come down a little bit further so that you can see. And I'm going to stitch, as I say, from that end, and I'm going to reverse there as well. And I can take that pin out now because we've come to that part, making sure my little mark here, so that's all nicely lined up. And then we will just continue to stitch across and take that pin out. Now I probably will, or I'm going to, take the zipper pull to the other side, and because I've got that mark again, that means that I've got this exactly in place, and we can go right to the edge of the tab and then just reverse there and trim that off. Okay, so let's just take that little bit of thread away, and now what we can do is flip that over. We can do that zip up, and there we have a nice neat top to our zip. So what we're going to do then is I'm just going to stitch down here, and so I'm going to stitch down the tab and then around the edge of the pocket, and it will then be secured to the, there we are, it's going to be secured to the front or back of the bag. That's if my needle doesn't decide to unthread. Okay, let's just get that rethreaded, which is fine. Take that to the back and let's start again. That's it. So I'm going to reverse there, and then we can just go straight down here. Now I should, and I haven't, pop some pins in here just to hold this. So it is going to be fairly robust. It is going to stay where it should be. I've still got my, still got my pin down here where I've tucked my raw edges in, and we didn't need to top stitch around the edge because this is going to be all the top stitching that we need. So I'm stitching about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and we will come straight down to the bottom, and then we can pivot. And I'm just going to take that pin out now. Just make sure that is nice and straight. Now what it actually does is follows the seam line on this occasion. So we can just stitch across there. I'm just going to take that pin out as well. Just make sure that goes to, that it's right in place, and pivot again. And I'm going to come, I'm just making sure that that is nice and straight, and stitch up the side and just a little bit over to that side there, and then just reverse down on that tab. Okay, so then we can take that away. Oh, I've got a little bit of thread hanging out there. That's gone. So now this is completely secure. Nice little pocket. Perhaps put your keys in there because that's nicely zipped in place. There we are. Ready. So that is the front or the back of our bag with our pocket with the little applique shape on there as well. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to put our handles on here. So handles wise, you can put them wherever you like, but, and I've got shorter handles on this one. So I'm going to, let's see, I think that would be quite a nice position to have them. So I'm using actually the 1/4 inch quilting seam or quilting line that I did. Oh, it's a good idea. That's it. And clip it there. And then I can look, because we're working with squares, I can do exactly the same this side as well, so that I know, in actual fact, I'll take it in just that little bit more. I'm going to do it up to the seam line. So I'm just going to put a clip on there to hold it. So this side as well, let's go to the seam line. And then we know that is exactly in position. And now what I would suggest is you allow a little bit of the bag handle to come over the edge here, because with one of mine, I hadn't got it trapped in the seam because I hadn't got any hanging over the edge. So just a little bit further over, just to give you, I'm just going to put that back, there we are, just to give you that added bit of security, so we can stitch across there and trim that off, and then we can move this one across to have that just going over just a little bit. And I'm just stitching probably 1/8 of an inch from the edge so that it doesn't show when we do our 1/4 of an inch. That's it. That's nicely held there. So we also need then to get our second piece, and our second piece is, let's put it that way round. And rather than measuring, or you can do, because we are butting it up to the seams, all I need to do is find where that seam is, just there, and pop a little clip on there. Make sure these don't twist, and just give it a check before you stitch, because the last thing you want is to have to use your seam ripper. And if you lay one piece on top of the other, you'll see it isn't in the right place. Oh, so I didn't do that one in the right place, did I? So that should be, it's this one that's wrong. I moved it over because it should be, there we are. Now I've put that one inside and I've put that one on the outside. Seam ripper out. Oh dear. So that's come on the inside there. Right. So I've put the edge of the handle here on the inside of the seam. So this needs to go on the inside there as well. That's why. So it's a good job I checked so that they match up. Okay, so again, let's just, it's going to be one of those nights. So let's just thread our needle again. Why it's decided to unthread, I don't know, but it's easy enough to rethread the needle. So start again there. Probably won't, the bobbin probably won't pick up this time either. Let's just have a look. Okay. Oh, that's minimally. Oh, we're just about attached. I'm going to come in at just a little bit more because I don't want it to not be secured in my seam when I come to put it all together. Okay, so as you saw, and this is where checking is good, they are both in the similar position. So we'll do exactly the same with this one too. Let's just take that off now. And again, there we are. Tell you what, I'm just going to stitch straight across here rather than cut the thread because it wants to, at the minute, I'll just take that up a little bit more. There we are. It doesn't want to keep my thread in the needle. Okay, so we've got those. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, and it actually probably would be better, I'm just going to move this over here. Get my thing here. Let's move it onto a nice flat surface so that you can see a little bit better. So with all that mess there. So I've got my lining fabric. So there is my lining, which you can either cut beforehand or wait until you've made your back and your front and cut it to the size that is. So I'm just going to, first of all, because I've got my handles on, it makes it flip. It doesn't line up properly. So I'm making sure that my bag handle, this is the top of my bag. And then I'm also making sure that the pocket is at the top as well. And then I'm lining this up. So I'm stacking my pieces and I'm going to stack my lining fabric on here. Now, if you'd done this before you'd put your handles on, it would all have been nice and flat. Because I haven't, and so then I would do both the squares at the top here and the bottom. So the squares that we're going to cut out are different sizes for the bottom, different to the top. So as the handles are creating this bulk here, I'm just going to line the bottom up so that my outer pieces down here, are lined up. And I've drawn myself the square, depending on what size you're going to make. So I've drawn it on my lining fabric and I am going to just cut these out through all layers. Now, I do prefer to draw it and then cut with scissors because with a rotary cutter, it can so easily cut further than you want. And then you get a little slit in here. So on this side, I'm making sure these are all lined up as well. And I've drawn the same size as I've just cut out in this corner. And then just cut across there. So there we have our larger square cutout corners. Now, if I turn this around, I'm also then going to line up these outer pieces at the top. And then I'm going to add the lining on the top and line those up. So once, as you see, I've got a smaller square drawn here. So once I've got those lined up, I am going to cut that out too. So let's just hold that together so that I can snip there That's it, that one's all gone. And then this one here, just make sure, as I say, that they are all totally aligned. There we go. And draw the same size as this size, because this is the top edge. And it's more about checking that your zip is at the top rather than at the bottom. Okay, so you can see there, we've got the little cutouts and the bigger ones. So this is our base. So what we need now, I'm just going to put one piece. We need one lining piece and we need an outer piece. So let's just take our outer piece there and we'll go back to the machine. So the first thing we're going to do, take that lining out of the way, is to get ourselves a zip. So the zip is actually going to be, where are we? Let's just get that little bit of thread out of the way. The zip is going to be the length between the cutout corners. So I have got myself a zip. It's not cut to size yet, but actually the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch across here just to make sure that the zipper doesn't come off, the pull doesn't come off. So let's just pop that under here. But that's it. And there's my seam ripper. I'm just pulling that together. There we are. Because if you just go back across here. So I'm just stitching 2 or 3 stitches across my zip to keep that held together. And then I am going to place this right side down onto the top of the bag here. So I am going to use pins, or you could use clips. So let's just use that pin just there. And it needs to go the whole way across here. Let me just pull that up for the moment. And we can pop a clip or 2 across as we go. And you'll notice that the bag handles are a little bit proud of the, oh, that's a little bit thick now, isn't it? But at this end, we're going to cut that off. Just, there we go. I should have trimmed that. So that's going to be exactly the width. So that fits, so it matches just there. So let's put a pin in there. To be honest, I should have stitched across that end as well, but I haven't, so let's hope for the best. So having got my, well, let's put another clip on there as well. Having got my zipper pulled down, I can then get my lining fabric and make sure we're at the top. So we want to make sure that the bigger cutout is at the bottom and we're using this with the smaller cutout at the top here. You'll notice, because if we did put it the wrong way round, what you'll see is it doesn't fit. Can you see? So you'll know it's the wrong way round. So let's just turn that and then we can line that up. I'll take the pin out and pop that back in. And then I'm going to line this with that edge just there. And we'll put the pin, take the pin out. There we go. Now what I like to do is, let me just see, I want to move that over. Oh no, I'll tell you what I can, oh no, let's just go back there. I can actually put what I did before, my zipper foot on. So this is unusual for me. I don't always put the zipper foot on, but I'm going to put the zipper foot on. I'll make sure that's attached. And then just make sure the needle is moved over. There we go. So I don't always like to pin the whole way across. So what I am going to do, I'm going to put the very first few stitches in. There we are. First few stitches. There we are. Is that going in? And then I like to line it up as I go. So let's just see. There we go. Just make sure the zipper pull is just pulling it out of the way a little bit. So I'm just going to take that off and just start from the edge again. There we are. And I'm going to take my zipper pull down a little bit further, or even further there, just so I can make sure the zip tape is lining up perfectly with, that's better. There we go. So now that I've gone past, I'm going to take my zipper pull back to this end because I don't want it to be in the way anymore. Then I can pull my lining back down and I can see that this tape edge is lining up perfectly. And we go over the handle. There we go. And I can still see that's lining up like that. And then I can take that off as well and carry on stitching along. We're coming up to another handle there. So with my, as I can keep pulling my lining up, I can make sure that all still aligns. And it's gone off now, but I can, because I've got that open, I can pop that over and pop the lining down and just carry on stitching right to the very end. I might even do a couple of reverse stitches there and trim. Okay, so we've stitched the whole way across. I can now pull open my lining, make sure that's all attached across there. And then I'm going to flip the lining underneath so it's on the underside of our bag. And I'm going to stitch, I'm going to top stitch along here. So let's just take that off because there we are. So I'm going to flip this around here and I'm pulling my, you can either take it to the ironing board or just pull your lining back so that you don't have any pleats under there. So just pull that back and make sure that lines up there. And then we can stitch along, well, on the outer fabric. There we go. And what I do is I pull my lining under there. Now you can either, I'm going to have my handles up. If you want to have them down, it just makes it a lot thicker. So if you pull your lining, your handles over the zip, and then it actually helps the, I'm just going to make my, oh, that's why my stitch length had gone down somewhat. There we are. So straight over those handles, and then it's absolutely fine. And I'm pulling my lining away from the edge so that I know that it will be lining up at the bottom beautifully. So we are stitching across there. As you can see, still got my zipper foot on. It makes it so much easier. I'm just going to pull my zip back on here. That's it, because that's not going to be affected with what we're doing at the minute. There we are. So straight across and cut. So there is our first side of the zip attached. So what we're going to do now, decided we're not cutting the bobbin thread. Right. So what we're going to do now, I am going to pull that out of the way because we don't want those there now. But we're going to take our other piece, our other front or back, as whatever you may call it. Let's just trim that bit of thread there. And we're going to place this right side down onto the other side of the zip tape. So to do this, we will line up this outer edge here with the outer edge here, and we will bring that, in actual fact, I'm going to flip it over the other way because it's easier to see. There we are. So it's easier to see that that zip tape lines up at that edge there. So again, let's have a pin just there, and a pin, or let's put some clips here and just here, and that should line up the whole way across. Let's just make sure that handle is nice and straight on there, and then that will fit the whole way across here as well. So there we are, the zip ends up just here, fitting that really nicely. Whoops, don't want to drop that. So there is a clip too. So we now also, because we've got the zip on the top, we need the other lining piece, which is here. And here is my top edge with the small cutout. So that is going face down onto the zip. And when we're putting zips in, we always think about zip sandwich. So here is our filling. In the middle, that's the sandwich. So we know that the lining goes on this side. So again, let's just line that up at this end, because this is the end that I'm going to stitch, and I can put a pin in there. And we'll do that first little bit of stitching just to hold it together. So let's hope, yeah, oh, we'll stitch this time, that's it. Right. So I've got that first little bit. Now, where is my zipper? Oh, the zip pulls right down this end. So there we are. I'm just going to carry on. I've got my zip lined up, the zip tape, and I'm just putting the lining down on there. Now I'm using my fingers to hold this purely because those handles are sticking up quite a bit. So when I take off that clip there, just pop your fingers down just to keep those edges aligned, the zip tape and the lining and the outer, which is on the underneath. So again, spread your fingers along there, and I'm taking it quite slowly, and got just a little bit more here. So just make sure that everything stays in place, and then we're coming up again. Whoops, let's get that handle. Oh, it's just feeling. That's it. Get it out of the way. And straight across there. And right now I've got the zipper pull in the way here. So again, I'm just going to take that back, or underneath, out of the way, or it's in between the handles, so awkward. That's it, that's gone. That's lovely. Right, so I've still got my zip tape lined up, and now I'm just going to carry on stitching across. There we go. Okay, and it looks as though my lining has just moved its way across a little bit there, but we can sort that out. So again, we open it out. We'll give it a little nail press along there. Nail press here. This has all gone in really nicely. And then we need that to go underneath. Let's just move that away. And push that underneath here, because we've now got to top stitch along this edge as well. So there is my lining underneath. I'm just pulling that away from the zip, and we're just going to stitch across just like we did before. So I think I can do that zip up. That's it, because it's not going to get in the way. Again, I've got my handle pulled over the zip so that it gives me a reasonable thickness to go through there. but nice and slowly does it. And again, with my right hand, I'm just pulling the lining fabric away from the main bag. And I do that as I go across, because it doesn't just stop. It is there for the whole duration across here. Here's my other handle. So again, let's just pull that open and across to the other side. Oops. Okay. And I'm just lining that. There we go. So that's just coming straight to the other side. And done. Okay. So there we have our outer with the lining underneath, and we have our handles there. Now let's just make sure, yeah, that's nicely, there we are, that's attached nice and firmly. So the next thing we need to do, it's all plain sailing from here, because you've done this so many times before. There is your bag. We're going to put our outer, main outer pieces right sides together, and then we're going to pull our lining so that they are right sides together. So you can see there's our main outer pieces, and we can pop a clip on there to hold them together, which I will do now. And then we'll do the same with the lining. So let's just, might put a pin on here. That's it, let's put a pin just there and flip that around, and we can just line these pieces up. We can just line, because the cutout corners just show that it all lines up. These seams will automatically line up, I'm sure. And let's go around to this side too, and just line it up at the bottom. And all we're going to do now is we're going to stitch down these outer edges, along the bottom, along this side, along the lining, but I'll show you that as I go. The first thing I'm going to do is take off my zipper foot, because we don't need that anymore. And we'll pop that on. We'll go for our 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're in there, so let's go there. And there we go. So I think actually if I start, I'll start on the main outer piece. We've got that clip on there. So, oops, it's decided, absolutely typical. I just pulled the thread completely out. I don't know where the thread has gone. Okay. Really playing me up tonight. I think that's when I kept putting the bag underneath the needle. But let's bring that down there. Up we go. Round, behind, and across. And needle threaded. Right, just make sure we've got enough, there we are, got enough bobbin thread. Okay, so let's just line that up again. And we'll reverse at the beginning, because it's always a good idea on bag making. And then just line these raw edges up here and stitch down to the bottom, to the cutout corner, and then we'll cut. Then I can pivot this round, and we can line up this bottom edge of the main outer, and reverse again there. And this will just line up as well, because it will. Whoops. So if the handles are making it pull away, which it does a little bit, just pull it back into place. Whoops. There's my iPad going. Whoops. And just started to see the snow mixing in. Bear with, I'm just going to look outside the window. Just bear with. Oh, yes. Janet lives about 5 minutes from me, and I can see the snow mixing in with the rain now. There's a lamp outside my window. I've actually got the curtains closed, but I've just had a peek and you can see it in the light. Okay, it's not very much at the minute anyway. So we'll pivot round because we leave that corner open, and then we'll start down the other side of the main outer bag. I can take that off now. So I'm just making sure that they're lined up at the sides and at the top edge here. We want that to be all aligned, and we'll just reverse there as well. And now we'll go down the lining. Oh, Dorothy's got snow as well. Dorothy's northwards, aren't you, Dorothy? Yes. Okay. So now I'm lining up my lining fabric just at that cutout corner. So we don't always have, or I don't always do, cutout corners at this point. Oh, for goodness sake. You really don't like me tonight. I've obviously not got a particular setting on here that is correct. The only good thing I'd say is it actually, it's caught that, doesn't it? Oh, there we are. Oh, coming through. There we go. That's better. It just keeps coming unthreaded because I say I don't, I'm obviously doing, well, I haven't got one of the settings right. There we go. Right, back down. So, there, we're stitching now and reverse there. Okay. So, get that lining all lined up. So the only thing different with the lining is that I want to leave a gap in the bottom edge. Oh, we are stitching. Good. So right to the bottom here. And cut. So now I'm in this bottom edge here, and I'm just going to line that up around the cutout corner. And I'm going to leave myself a nice big gap because then, that's it. So I've only probably come in about a couple of inches, and then I'm going to scoot that right across to the other side because there's nothing, you know what I haven't done? I haven't opened my zip, have I? So let's just, I think I did this yesterday. Right, so I've left my gap. Let's just have a look. So this is what I had to do. I had to go in through here. I'm going to take that pin out. See where, oh, the zip is here. The zip is here. So if this happens to you, you can go in through one of your corner cutouts and hopefully, that's it. I've managed to get my thumb and finger in there. So I've managed to open it. So I went in through my corner cutout at the bottom to be able to open my zip. Yesterday, I'd actually stitched it up, so I had to open it. But never mind. There is always somehow to resolve it. But if you think about opening the zip anyway, you wouldn't have to do that. So here we go. So I'm just reversing. I'm just coming up the very last side of the lining and just making sure that lining, the raw edges are nicely aligned. But just bring that across. Whoops. And that's pulling away. So just be careful when we are doing it here. Pins are probably the answer here, but just make sure that that is nicely lined up because it was pulling away. So this is where it's going to be a little bit different. So we'll go to the bottom to start off with. So my bottom cutouts are flat. If you pop your finger in and flatten it, pull it wide so it's like a mouth, like that. Flatten it down, and those seams will actually align. And what we can do is pop a clip on there, and then we're just going to drag that to the machine, flatten it down, and we're going to stitch across here. So definitely reverse at the beginning there, hold my finger down and go across to the other side and reverse at that end also. And trim. Okay, so that's nicely stitched on both sides. Then the other outer, pop our finger in, pull it open, line up those seams. We'll put a clip on there again and find which way is easier. Sometimes it's easiest to put it that way. I think perhaps it's this way, just so that you can see. Sometimes this edge likes to go into a little bit of a pointed edge, but if we make sure it's nicely flattened, then that will be nice and straight across there. So again, reverse at the beginning and reverse at the end. Okay, so this is the other end at the top here where our outer meets the lining. So we do similar, but what we've got is two cutouts. So if we first of all open up the outer, so the outer fabric, whoops, and do just as we did before, and just pull that open so that that is nice and flat, and you'll see that that lines up beautifully. And what we do, so be careful not to pull that zip open. I'm just popping a clip on there. Now we've also got the lining here, which has its cutout as well. So we want to open that and we want to line it up on top. So I'm just using my fingers to just pull that open as I have there. And so I've got the lining lined up just in the same way on top of the outer. And we're going to stitch across there. So let's just pop that down. And I'm using 1/4 inch seam allowance, but if you want to just come in just that little bit more, it will make it, most definitely, you want to make sure that they are both attached together. So you can see there, I've got the stitching. Oh, that's only just, can you see how that's gone back just a little bit? Let me just have a look. I just want to see if that is going to be, I think what I'm going to do, this is where, so you can see that's just come down, although no, I've got the stitch line here. That's where I've reversed. So we are going to be okay. Now I'm just, but it's come quite close to this edge here. So I am going to do another line of stitching just a little bit further in. So as I said to you, it's a good idea to do it a little bit wider than your 1/4 inch. And then what happened? I didn't, did I? It's all right, my needle's just decided to unthread again. So there we are. All right, so reverse there. And I'm just coming across just that little bit further. So it will make the top of the bag slightly wider, but at least I know that is now perfectly secure. Just cut those bits of thread off there. And then we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Actually, I haven't done the lining ones yet, have I? That's all right. So on the other side, let's open up the main outer like so. And you can see we have the zip in there, but we just want to make sure that I'm just pulling it apart. We want the zip, can you see? We want it to actually go together there. We don't want it to be pulled apart. So most definitely, let's have a clip on here to hold it. So let's put a clip on there to hold that there. And then also to do exactly the same with our lining. Splay that. So I'm just opening that out. Splay that open and line up that with our outer fabric. Okay. So there's a little bit of excess here. This is where my lining stretched a little. So, but I've still got that lined up. Now this time I think I'm going to stitch from on top of the outer fabric, because I think that might give me a better chance of making sure. Can you see how that slipped down just a little bit there? So we want to pull that up and also make sure the lining is lined up there as well. And again, I would say just do it just that little bit wider than your 1/4 inch seam allowance, and reversing at the start and the end. Let's just see if that looks okay. Right, so the only thing I've got left to do is here, and we will open out our lining. Our lining is much thinner to work with, so pull it apart, line up those seams, and then flatten, and we will stitch across. I've got one seam going one way and one the opposite way. Let's just pull that nice and flat and straight across to the other side and trim that, and there we go. And then the other side here, open it out, pull it wide and flatten so that those seams come together in opposite directions. And then, oops, let's get the bag over here. Flip that. No, I'm going to flip it that way. It doesn't matter which way you do it. It's just whichever way makes it easier. There we are. And just making sure that my edges are aligned there. Straight across to the other side and reverse. Okay, so we need to turn it to the right side now. So through the gap in our lining, which is here, a nice big one. There we go. Let's just pick those bits off. I can put my hand in here. I did open up the top of the bag, and now I can get my hand in so much better. I'll open it up wide, and then I'm going to grab those bottom corner and just pull that through. Okay, and you see how much easier it is to pull it through once you have a nice big gap in your lining. Okay, so let's just make sure, yep, this is the top here. That looks fine. But what I'm going to do first is keep my bag in the lining and push down to those outer corners. Make sure they are stitched correctly. We don't want any holes there. So at the bottom, that is fine. And then we just need to look at these top edges here. So where the zip is, there we are. And that's what we want to see. So that is nice there. Let's just take that off. So we want to see that nice line, just like our bottom corners there. Let's just see this one is okay as well. Yep. So we're bound to get a little bit of, so that is going to come across there to give you that nice edge. But the only thing we need to do is just check that the lining corners, that they are good. So I'll put my fingers into those corners. Yep, that's stitched. And then we need to just stitch across here in the lining. So as usual, you can either go to the iron, or I'm just nail pressing across here, all the way across, about 1/4 inch. But it's just from where the stitching goes. I'm going to flip that over, and we'll do the same on the other side. Oh, here it is. There we go. Flip. So it just gives it, there we are. There we are. So I've just nail pressed those back, and then all I need do is just line these up. Let's just get those little bits of thread. You can either tuck those bits of thread into the seam or trim them off. But I'm just going to line those up, pop it under the machine and stitch across here nice and easily. Ugh. How many times is that? Okay. Right. I'm actually using moon thread for a change, and I think it is telling me I don't like moon thread. And oh look, yeah, it doesn't. It's don't know, it's catching on something there. Perhaps it's telling me I need a new needle. It is really not liking me tonight. So let's start again. There we are. And we'll just reverse there. So I'm just holding this at the other end of the seam and just pulling that together, putting my fingers down, and I can see that those edges are lining up beautifully. There we go. And we can just carry on stitching. Are we stitching? Yes, we are. That is good. That is very good. And I've gone just past where the opening was. Trim that little bit off. Trim that little bit off. And push it into the bag. Okay, what I'm going to do is come back up so that you can see me pushing this into the bag. Oh, there we are. So here we have our bag. I just put my hands into the bottom, so I'm pushing the lining down there, and similarly on that side as well. So there we have. I'm just going to zip that up, and there we are. Ta-da! Our second little bag. So as you can see, that one's got shorter handles. That one has got longer handles. Yeah, it's only a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but a nice size. And this is the small size. So I can't see now. Oh, this one. This is the one I've just made tonight. The handles aren't twisted, which is good. Let's just see. It just goes. There we are. So that is our Lydia bag. Lydia bag. There we are. Really quite nice and easy to make. I like the we'll give this a little steam a bit later. I like this depth across here with the zip. Although the zip is along the top, we've got that nice little bit of width all the way there, just to make it look as though it's got a gusset, if you like, but it hasn't. It's purely what we've done, got little bits of thread all over it to make it like that. So here is our bag of the month for January, the first one of 2026. Oh, thank you, Janet. You know where that's probably gone. Marvellous, yes. But as I say, you could, if you want to, take the measurements in the instructions. If you take the measurements of the lining fabric and cut that for your outer fabric, you don't need to do your patchwork at all. So if you wanted to do it in plain denim, in plain canvas, if you've got an embroidery machine and wanted to embroider on the front of it, you could make this shape bag with no patchwork at all. Excuse me. But I do think that the combination of the denims makes it really pretty. The more I keep looking at it, I think I like that. And I actually think a fabric that was made like this would be really good. But it wasn't too difficult to do this. This patchwork is the easiest to do. And as I said before, where we join them, that intersection, if it's not quite spot on, it doesn't matter because we're covering it. Now, what you also could do, if your intersections are spot on and you want to show them, pop your shape in the center of a square so that you can see those intersections. The other thing, you don't need to use squares like I have. Put little heart shapes, put circles. It's just, for me, it was the quicker, easier option to do a square going around a square. Oh, Bridget's halfway through. Fantastic. Well done. I wondered if anybody might start doing it because you've got all of the instructions, but we have zip at the front or back, whichever you like to call it. And as you know, there are no pockets on the inside, but if you want to put pockets in there, you are most welcome to. You could put exactly the same pocket on the inside, or the internal zip pocket that we've done on many occasions, or just your standard patch pocket, entirely up to you. So, it's not coming too much of a snowstorm yet. So thank you so much for joining me tonight again. It's been quite nice having a two-parter, I think, and it means you've had my full attention for 2 sessions already this week. So all that's left to say to me, old jeans, exactly, Virginia. Now, that was the inspiration I got, but I hadn't got any old jeans, and also I wanted to make it a more regular piece to sew together. But if you wanted to just crazy patch some old denim jeans, would be absolutely fabulous. Or if you bought some of this fabric already, why not combine it with old jeans as well? It would look lovely. So as Jack says, stay warm, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow with that little scarf or neck warmer, as I've called it. And I think you'll find that a real treat in this weather. So take care of yourselves, stay warm, keep the heating on, stay indoors, don't go driving unless you need to. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.